If you grew up when a bow tie in the driveway could mean your dad's Impala, a C10 that actually went to work, a Camaro at the stoplight, a Chevelle at the drag strip, or a Corvette you swore you'd own someday, Chevrolet gave you plenty to dream about. But buying those memories in 2026 is a very different story. Some classic Chevys now cost more than they're worth to actually drive. Some carry huge premiums for 3 letters on a fender, and others are still hiding in plain sight at prices that make far more sense. So if it were my money today, these are the only 5 classic Chevys I'd seriously buy. And number 1 isn't the obvious collector favorite. It's the Chevy I think still gives you the most car for the money. Welcome to Motor Memento, and if you want an actual opinion on which forgotten Chevys and engineering stories are worth your money, hit subscribe before we get into it. At number 5, we have the 1965 to 1970 Chevrolet Impala. Memory comes first, with the Impala. Most people over 50 remember one, riding in one as a kid, seeing one at a stoplight, watching one roll into a diner lot. That full-size Chevy presence was just part of the landscape. The buying decision splits from the nostalgia once you start shopping. There's a real gap between what documented, numbers-matching SS396 cars command and what an ordinary 2-door hardtop costs. That gap is earned. The SS cars have the build sheet and the racing pedigree. I'm not arguing against that premium existing. I'm arguing you don't need to pay it. A 1965 or 1966 2-door hardtop running a small block V8 in honest driver condition gets you the same roofline and the same acres of chrome that made this car unmistakable in 1966. You're not paying the collector tax attached to 3 letters on a fender. Sold listing data over the past year backs this up. Plain hardtops still transact well under a documented SS, and that spread hasn't closed. That doesn't mean every Impala is a steal. Clean, rust-free examples have gotten harder to find, and prices reflect it. The Impala represents something the badge chasers miss. It wasn't the fastest car on the block. It was the biggest, the most recognizable, the car families chose, and hot rodders modified, and lowrider guys later turned into rolling art. Be honest about the trade-off. Rust finds its way into the rockers, trunk floor, and lower quarters on cars that spent winters up north. Steering feel is heavy, and while many of these ran front discs by the late 60s, plenty of base cars still had drums all around. Check. Don't assume either way. You're not buying a show car. You're buying a slice of the era at a price that still lets you drive it. At number 4, we have the 1967 to 1972 Chevrolet C10. The truck is the disruption on this list, on purpose. A classic Chevrolet doesn't need stripes or a performance badge to matter. The C10 of this generation earned its place through honesty rather than spectacle. Built to work, simple enough for a shade tree mechanic, available from a straight 6 up to a genuinely quick small block. That plain-spoken purpose has mostly vanished from the current collector conversation, where the loudest C10s online are 6-figure restomods with modern chassis and air ride that share nothing with a truck that once hauled lumber. The market has already caught up here, so don't expect a bargain bin price. Short bed fleet-side trucks carry a real premium over step-side and long bed configurations, because the proportions read cleaner and slot more easily into custom culture. A documented, solid condition C10 with real history, a working V8, and its original fleet-side bed still sits well below a full restomod build. But it isn't the sleeper it was a decade ago. Here's where caution matters. Skip the romantic backstory and check the metal. Rust in the rockers, floor pans, and firewall will eat your budget faster than anything else, because those repairs are structural. Find one that's already sorted, solid floors, no firewall rot, an engine that runs, and you're into one of the more usable classic truck platforms available. Before the muscle car half of this list, if forgotten Chevys and honest buying breakdowns are useful to you, That's what this channel is built around, so subscribe if you haven't. At number 3, we have the 1968 to 1972 Chevrolet Chevelle. The second-generation Chevelle has a specific silhouette GM's designers got right the first time: a long hood, a short deck, a coupe roofline sitting low over wide rear haunches. The stance alone tells you what it was built to do before you even hear the engine. That silhouette is also where the buying trap lives. The SS396 and SS454 models, the real ones, with build sheets and correct casting numbers, command premiums that collector market reporting has tracked widening rather than closing. Those premiums are earned. The SS Chevelle built its reputation on the strip. My argument runs the other direction. A Chevelle Malibu, built as a Malibu, running a small block V8, with respectable paint and a clean interior, gives you that same long hood, short deck shape, and nearly the same driving experience without the specification tax. You get the silhouette and the era without the premium attached to proving a car was born with an SS package. I say this with respect for owners of the real thing. When badges carry that much money, some cars get built to look like something they weren't. I'm not calling every modified Malibu a fraud. Plenty are honest tribute builds where the owner never claimed otherwise. But documentation matters more as the premium grows, and a Malibu you can verify is worth more than a Chevelle with a history nobody can confirm. If you want the shape and the parts support without chasing investment-grade paperwork, the Malibu is the rational buy. Let the collectors keep their numbers matching SS cars. At number 2, we have the 1967 to 1969 Chevrolet Camaro. The first-generation Camaro has become genuinely expensive, and I won't dress it up as a hidden bargain. Bring a trailer sold results over the past year show that floor holding steady rather than softening. Demand is active, clean cars keep shrinking in supply, and prices reflect exactly that. Here's what's also true. The Camaro earned a lot of that reputation honestly. GM built it specifically to answer the Mustang, and the packaging shows a shorter wheelbase and lower cowl than the Chevelle above it on this list, giving it a tighter, more tossable feel the bigger muscle cars never had. The RS package, the SS variants, and the Z28 built for Trans Am competition were real engineering answers to a real rival. None of that changes the math. A meaningful part of what you're paying for is the nameplate, and the fact that everyone else wants one too. Here's why it still earns number 2 anyway. Some experiences don't have a substitute at a lower price. The way this chassis turns in, the way the greenhouse and hood-to-cowl ratio reads at a stoplight, isn't something a cheaper alternative reproduces. You can buy a Chevelle for less and get a bigger muscle car experience. You cannot buy a Chevelle and get this car's specific pony car proportions. If budget matters, don't treat an RS or SS as the default entry point. Those trims carry their own premium. A well-sorted small block driver in plain trim still delivers the handling and presence that make this car worth having. Save the Z28, COPO, and Yenko money for someone chasing investment-grade paperwork. At number 1, we have the 1984 to 1996 C4 Chevrolet Corvette. This ranking will bother some of you. Putting a wedge-shaped, digital-dash Corvette ahead of a Malibu and a first-gen Camaro sounds backwards if you're grading on collector prestige. I'm grading on whether the money buys a great ownership experience in 2026, and by that measure, this generation wins. The reputation problem is real, but overstated. The digital dash and plastic-heavy cabin read as dated now, fair criticism. What gets missed is how much this platform changed over 12 years. Early cars ran the Crossfire and then tuned port injection L98. By 1992, Chevrolet dropped in the second-generation LT1, 300 horsepower, 330 pound-feet, reverse flow cooling, acceleration slip regulation traction control. Independent rear suspension had been part of the C4 from the start, but the ride electronics kept evolving, right through 1996's real-time damping system that adjusted each corner individually. This isn't one static car pretending to be modern for 12 years. It's a platform Chevrolet kept refining, and the later LT1 cars are where that refinement shows. Focus your search on 1992 through 1996, specifically the standard LT1 coupe or convertible, not the exotic ZR1 or manual-only LT4 cars that carry their own premium. A solid, driver-quality LT1 with decent paint and moderate mileage sits in the middle of what these 5 cars cost. Accessible, not throwaway cheap, but nowhere near a clean first-gen Camaro or a documented Chevelle SS. Hagerty's price data puts typical good-condition C4 values well under what people assume a Corvette should cost, and that's held steady rather than being a one-off auction fluke. What that money buys is a real Corvette, rear-wheel drive, a 5.7-liter V8, pop-up headlights no Corvette since has had, and a wedge silhouette that reads unmistakably as its decade. The LT1's 300 horsepower was period-tested into the sub-5-second range to 60 under the right conditions. A genuine benchmark, not a guarantee every car hits it today. I want to be straight about ownership rather than sell a fantasy. A well-maintained LT1-era C4 is a car you can put real miles on, but it's still a 30-plus-year-old car. The OptiSpark distributor is a known weak point that hates heat and moisture. Weather seals dry out. Wiring can get finicky. Cooling systems need attention. And interior plastics that were mediocre new haven't improved with age. None of that's unusual for a car this old. Budget for maintenance rather than assume reliability is automatic. Compare that honestly against the alternative. If you want a Corvette with more history, that's a C2 or C3. Rare big block cars and desirable factory options in those generations can command serious money, rightly so, but an ordinary driver-quality C3 without rare options occupies a much wider, often more approachable price range than people assume, closer to a C4 LT1 than the collector-grade cars dominating auction headlines. The gap that used to justify skipping the C4 isn't as wide as the forums make it sound, and the C4 still wins on usability and parts support. There are still hundreds of thousands of C4s on the road. Parts aren't exotic, specialists exist everywhere, and the ownership community is large enough you're never troubleshooting alone. That's the exact thing that turns a classic car into something you'll actually drive instead of babying in a garage. This list comes down to one idea. These aren't Chevrolet's 5 most valuable or prestigious classics. They're 5 different ways to own a piece of the eras people still care about: full-size cruising in the Impala, honest work truck culture in the C10, muscle car presence in the Chevelle, pony car identity in the Camaro, and Corvette performance in the C4. The C4 wins the top spot because it delivers on all of that at once, at a price that leaves room to actually drive it. So tell me where you'd draw the line differently. Maybe you'd pull the C10 for a Monte Carlo, or argue a Tri-5 Bel Air deserves the Impala's spot, or you think I'm underselling a C3 and it should have bumped the C4 out entirely. Make your case in the comments. I'll read through them.